Hi, my name is Matt Hallisey, and I am the founder of the Negotiator's Playbook. I want to talk to you guys about something today that I know you all are interested in, and that's how to make more money. Specifically, how do you close more sales? Well, if you're like a lot of people that are in sales training or management, they're going to tell you the same thing: overcoming objections, persistence, always be closing. I mean, the list goes on. But as you probably know, these things just get tiring very quickly, and in point blank, they don't work. So I want to give you a little insight to some things that I've learned along the way that will radically transform the way that you go about working with your customers. And in the end, it's going to radically transform the results you have and ultimately will transform your bank account as well. And the great thing, it's super easy to understand and really easy to implement in your business. The hard part, well, it's having access to this information. I mean, nobody teaches it. Well, that's what I want to do for you guys today, is give you access to something that's going to make your life a lot easier, make you a lot more money, take away a ton of stress in your job, and really get you the praise and recognition that you rightfully deserve. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about a concept that I call attraction switches. And basically these, once you understand these and implement these in your business, the ability to really profit off them, to make more money, to be more successful, is going to just be a lot easier. But really the bigger part of this is you're going to have a window in the mind of your customers and in your prospects. The goal is not to say, okay, well, I'm going to learn about all this and I'm going to have, I'm going to sign up every single person that I come in contact with. Well, you don't want to do that. Nobody wants to do that. Really, the goal is you're going to have you're going to change the playing field and really tilt it in your favor, so that you're going to be able to really have the upper hand in really vetting out who gets to work with you. And in the end, what you're going to find is that the customers you have are going to be a lot more responsive. They're going to be long-term, loyal customers who refer you business. And that when you have new products coming out, they're ready to go. So, what are these attraction switches? Well, they are subconscious mental triggers that cause people to act. And it's not just in sales. It's at work, in your car on the freeway, with your friends, in the grocery store. I mean, it really doesn't matter where it is. Attraction switches really drive a lot of what we do. In fact, we're hardwired to respond to these triggers. It's something that's built in our brain. It's not something that's ever taught. It's not something that we just decide to do one day. And in fact, it's not even a choice. Now, what's really powerful about that aspect is that when something is hardwired and not a choice in your prospect's mind, it means 50%, 60%, 70%, not even 80% of your prospects are going to have this, but every single one of your prospects will basically make decisions according to whether or not an attraction switch has been flipped. In fact, every decision we make is done to advance at least one of the following. Number one, attainment of pleasure. If we get something that makes us know that we're going to have something really good is going to happen to us, we're all in. In fact, the opposite's true as well. We'll do almost anything to avoid pain. Just like a child that burns their hand on the stove, they know they're never going to touch that stove again. That attraction switch of pain avoidance is very, very powerful. A sense of belonging. There's a lot of things that people will do, whether they're positive or destructive, so that they can basically ensure their own sense of belonging to a particular group or clique. And lastly, extremely powerful validation of ego. Well, some of the major attraction switches, let's go over. There's many, many more than these, but we're going to go over 7 major ones. So the first one is social proof. This is basically a shortcut to how people make decisions in a group. Secondly, authority. People work really hard and long to try to position themselves in authority, and we're going to talk about why that's important. Reciprocity. This is probably my personal favorite, and this is one of the most powerful ways to get somebody to act when you have fence sitters. Anticipation. A lot of people spend a lot of money when that attraction switch of anticipation gets flipped. Community, whether you're in politics or sports or anything, community is something that will absolutely drive behavior. And if you ask somebody why they're doing it, they have no clue why. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more. Scarcity. Obviously, in sales, there's a lot of talk about injecting scarcity in there, and most of it's false scarcity. And to be honest, a lot of it's not necessarily the most ethical way to go about it. But there's a way to really use this to your advantage in an honest way with a lot of integrity, but in a way that's very powerful. And lastly, curiosity. Yeah, curiosity killed the cat, but it's going to do a lot more for you when you really understand how to use that to your advantage. So let's kick this off. Let's talk about social proof. Social proof, basically, you can give a definition that it's the positive influence created when somebody finds out that other people are doing anything. And when you don't know how to proceed in a given way, typically what most people do, virtually all the time actually, is they'll look at what other people are doing to help them make that decision. Simply put, it's a massive shortcut to make a decision. Social proof is very powerful. It provides safety to people because if they're making a decision, they don't want to look like an idiot. I mean, they don't want to look like a moron and spend money or do something and then just be completely embarrassed in the future. There truly is safety in numbers. And the funny thing about it is it gets people to do things that they wouldn't normally do. And if you ask them about it, why did you do X? They probably don't have much of an answer for you. But for those in the sales area, one of the great things about social proof is it will immediately get people to spend money without thinking about it. People that got a book on Oprah's show, they may or may not have known the author. They probably didn't even know what the book was about. And realistically, they have no clue if the book's even any good. But the fact that it's in Oprah's hand makes them bust out their credit card and spend money without thinking twice about it. So let's talk about a couple different types of social proof and how you can easily leverage that in your business. The first one is called expert social proof. The second, celebrity. See that a lot on TV. You have user social proof, and my personal favorite, it's what I call crowd wisdom. Let's start with expert social proof. Expert social proof, basically, there's a term out there called a halo effect. And basically what it means is when somebody looks at you as an expert, they trust everything around you. They trust the decisions you make, the products you buy, the people around you. It really doesn't matter. They're immediately going to buy into that. There's a couple different ways you can actually get that, but the most important way is you have to establish a good first impression. And where people really get on the wrong foot with this in sales is they think that they have to create their own first impression, and they try to be, to speak the great way or dress a certain way. Does it have a little bit of an effect? Yeah, a little bit, but it's really not powerful at all. There's a couple ways to get this, though, without really spending much energy, and it really can tremendously change the way that your clients and prospects look at you. The first one is to become a speaker. I don't care if you're in front of a group of 15,000 people or 6 people. If you're in front of that group, the fact that you're in front of the group immediately makes everybody think that you're an expert. And the crazy thing is you probably don't know any more than anybody else, but they don't look at it that way. You're up there, you're in front of the podium, you have the microphone on, and you're in front of them. So they're going to look at you as an expert. The second way to do this is to become a leader in your field. And this is just crazy. It's super easy. It's low-hanging fruit, but very few people try to do this. You look at people that go on the radio or on TV or in a trade journal or a magazine. It could be a community newspaper even. And when you're interviewed for that, they always introduce you as a leader, as an expert, as somebody who really knows what they're talking about. And the fact that somebody's reading a magazine or listening to a particular radio station or watching a particular TV station, and then they see you interviewed on that, immediately they're thinking, this guy has to have something, otherwise he wouldn't, they wouldn't be interviewing him. And the crazy thing is, I can't tell you how many people have literally just called up a radio station and said, "Hey, I have a book coming out," or I'm the new insurance guy in town, or anything. And this radio station needs to fill time, and they need to have talent filled, and they have vacancies for guests. And you immediately step in there, and next thing you know, you are an expert. And all of a sudden, you have way more leads coming in, and they're pre-screened, they're not skeptical, and they really, really want to learn from you and buy from you. All because you decided to do things a little bit differently than the mass of humanity in your field. The second one is called celebrity social proof. And this one's a little different. Celebrity social proof validates your social position in society. What do I mean by that? People do things. People want to have their own ego validated. And so whether you're at a golf tournament or you're taking a picture with somebody who's famous. I mean, even if you run into a celebrity on the street, people want a picture, and they're going to hang that on their wall and show their friends that they're associated with somebody with a high social value. And it also, part of it goes to what they call the extended self. What I mean by this is that it's not necessarily just who people are with, but what they have on there. And what I mean by that is that, it may be the car you drive or the watch you wear. It could be the clothing line or the brand you wear. It really doesn't matter. People will spend more to be associated with something. And, I don't really know much about Tag Heuer for the most part, but when you see Brad Pitt or somebody else famous wearing that watch, immediately there's a cachet to it. And when you buy that watch, you're just not buying that watch. You're saying, "Oh, this is Brad Pitt's watch." And immediately it's like, "Oh, okay, wow, that's really awesome." And it basically is validating your extended self. A perfect example of this is Rolls-Royce. Rolls-Royce is owned by BMW. And my first thought when I heard that is it should be the other way around. An average BMW goes for about $40,000 to $50,000. Well, a Rolls-Royce goes for a couple $100,000. But the question is, are the parts in a Rolls-Royce worth that $100,000 and plus $1,000? No. I mean, the parts might be nicer, but there's no way in the world they're worth that much more. But the fact that Rolls-Royce has a cachet about it, that people will say, "I drive a Rolls-Royce or a Ferrari," means that they're going to spend extra money to be associated with something that has a high social celebrity value. And once you learn to really take advantage of this, I mean, people will literally open up their wallet and will stop giving you a price objection immediately. So we get to user social proof, and this one's a little bit different. User social proof, it's not about a high celebrity value or being a leader in a particular area, but it's really establishing a tie into people wanting to experience a similar experience of people in their peer group. And this is where stories come in. Not many salespeople, they talk about stories. They may give a testimonial, or they might have a referral list where a customer can call, but honestly, that's weak sauce, and that's terrible, and people really expect that. And I mean, if that's the best game you have and you're not selling a whole lot, it's not my fault. You really got to up your game. But bringing stories into your business is huge. Now, you can have people, write you a testimonial, and that might be great. But giving somebody a personal story about what working with you has done for them, I mean, they probably never meet the person. They don't know anything about them. But people have a magnetic attraction to stories, whether they're TV shows or books or movies. People really want to be a part of that story. They really want to be just wrapped into it. So when you can really tap into that and bring stories into your business, it immediately will completely change the mindset of your customer and completely change the engagement level that they have. Testimonials. This is the easiest way that people butcher their business. They think, okay, if I get a testimonial, if I put it, I have a guy write a testimonial or what have you, that it's going to change my business. Well, you're wrong. I mean, point blank, it's wrong. testimonials have to be personal. It's not a little blurb where it says, Jim changed my life, or this really saved me money. You know, people expect you to post your best customers out there. And, you know, you might have 100 customers and 2 testimonials. Well, they have no idea if the other 98 agree with them, or those are just the only 2 people that actually liked what you know, doing business with you. But changing the way that you do things is huge. Some people have a business where it's a web-based business and they're selling things on a website. Some people, they don't. But it doesn't mean they shouldn't. And I'll give you a perfect example of this. There's a group out there that a friend of mine owns. And you go to their website and it's not talking about their products at all. I mean, if you go to their website, you don't even see their product. But what you do see is what I call the wall of honor. And you get on there and, you know, in this one, there's 6 of them, but on this website, there's a lot more than 6. But you see that and immediately think, okay, you know, I can click on any one of these videos and I know what's going to happen. You know, these people are going to rave about it, but actually they get really personal and you can see what the person's saying, how they're saying it. So you watch one of them, but there's 5 more of them. And immediately you're like, okay, well, I know what the other 5 are going to say. And it immediately builds in this resistance to skepticism. And if you have a business and you're not putting up a wall of honor on a website, and even if you don't have a website for your business and you're selling insurance or selling, you know, copiers, whatever, you need to get a website up and have this. And when you draw people on there and they can really get to meet and shake hands in a sense with the people who are you know, raving fans of yours, it makes a big difference. They don't even have to click on the video. When you see 25 videos on there, you know what's coming. They know that there's going to be a countless number of people that endorse you, that have socially pre-approved you, and if you've proven to them subconsciously that you're somebody that they should do business with. And what's really cool about that is instead of having to do it yourself and having to try to convince people that you're trustworthy, and to be honest, most people will be skeptical about that, now their subconscious is doing that for you and doing it much more effectively. So let's talk about my personal favorite, and that is crowd wisdom. What crowd wisdom basically says is that when people are not sure what decision to make, they look to, you know, the peers and those around them as cues and clues on what to do. Why? Because people don't want to look like a moron. People don't want to make a decision and then have somebody come, one of their friends or family come around and basically just say, what are you, stupid? I mean, that's dumb. Now all of a sudden they have this social stigma on them that they can't get off of. So instead of risking that, they look to those around them to give them cues on how to act. Now I'll give you a couple perfect examples of this. One, how many times have you seen this? 4 people, they're probably friends, hanging out, and instead of talking to each other, they're on their cell phone. Well, why is that? Well, it starts with the first person that busts out their cell phone. And you have to ask, why, if they're with 3 of their friends, why are they sitting here having this need to bust out their cell phone instead of talking to their friends? Well, quite simply, there's a fear of missing out. Whether it's a Facebook feed or Twitter or Pinterest or email or sports scores, they feel like if they're not connected, that they're going to be missing out, regardless of the fact they're with 3 of their friends. And the fact it's so powerful, it's actually a form of social anxiety. That if people haven't checked their cell phone in a certain period of time, they're going to get anxious and they're going to have this compulsive need to do it. Don't believe me? Well, if you're one of the people that drives in their car, hopefully you're not, but if you're one of the people that drives in their car and is on their phone, whether you're checking sports scores or texts or what have you, and the next time you're in your car, put your phone down, lock it away, and I guarantee you within a matter of seconds or minutes, your subconscious mind is going to be trying to talk you into, oh, I'm only going to check my text, or it's not a big deal, I'm not going to do X, Y, or Z. But you're going to feel this really strong urge to check it. And it's huge. It's something you can't explain, and a lot of times you can't control it. And in essence, you're risking your life and risking a ticket to assuage your fear of missing out. But let's look at the other 3. The first person busts out their phone. The other 3 people are like, hello, we're right here. Well, what do? They confront the person? No. Actually, they do the same thing and they bust out their phone. Why? One, they've been given a green light to do it socially by the first person, but two, there's a compulsive need to conform. No matter what the person does, whoever the leader is in a group, whatever that person sets as the tone, the other people immediately conform to that model. A great other example of the fear of missing out, and I'm sure you guys seen this, is Apple. Whenever they have a new iPad or a new MacBook or a new iPhone, people will go voluntarily homeless. They will sleep on the streets to be the first person to get one of those products. I mean, never mind the fact that they could go like a week later and walk in and get it, or they could order it online, but they feel like they have to be the first person to get it. And that fear of missing out, of being in that group, is so strong that they will literally disrupt their life and sleep on the street overnight to avoid missing out on that. If you guys have not incorporated crowd wisdom into your sales business, I guarantee you are missing out on a ton of business that will literally just come up and ask you to buy from you. The next traction switch I want to talk to you guys about is authority. And basically, authority is a socially accepted source of information or advice. Again, it's another shortcut to really making a decision and feeling confident about it. And in your business, if you are not using authority to help leverage your sales, you're really making it hard on yourself, and you're basically running backwards uphill. So let's talk a little bit more about authority. When somebody's perceived as an authority figure, whether they're a police, a doctor, whoever, we listen to them. Perfect example of that is Dr. Oz. Dr. Oz has a huge following on TV, but to be honest, you don't know how good of a doctor is. He just has his scrubs on. And because he has his scrubs on, and because he's, quote, Dr. Oz, or you look at Dr. Phil or anybody like that, because they're fill in the blank, we immediately listen to them. We don't know how good they are. We don't know if their clients or patients love them or don't like them, but we immediately listen to them. Why? Because they provide immediate and reliable information. We don't have to sit here and spend, half hour scrolling through and trolling through Google to find something, but we have somebody that provides that shortcut for us. Okay, if they said X, I believe them and I trust them. Does it mean that that person's right? I don't know, maybe or maybe not, but it doesn't really matter. The people that make those decisions immediately will make that decision and stick to it. Why is this? Because they have a higher social value. If you have somebody who is, quote, your, a friend of your family, and he's like the investment guy, you're going to ask him for that stock tip or the investment advice, and you're going to listen to him because, one, he knows more about something than you do. He's that authority figure in that particular field, and it really doesn't even matter whether he's right or not. It's just this person holds that position of authority in this particular area, and like I said, it's a shortcut for you to make a decision that you can feel good about, that you can kind of, you're subconsciously justified in doing so. So how does this authority work practically in your sales business? Well, let me tell you a couple ways. Number one, the thing about authority is it's not something that somebody enforces on you, but it's actually something that you give in deference to others. So whether it's, let's say it's a police officer or a lawyer or a financial planner, or it could be even a celebrity, it's something that their power isn't generated by their own contribution, but it's actually something that you give to them. Whether or not they even earned it or even have that ability, it doesn't matter. It's something that you're giving to them. It's also important because it gives you that, when they give that authority power to you, it gives you the ability to direct the actions or thoughts of others. So if you're somebody that, and you're talking about, a stock tip or, where the market's going to go, and somebody jumps in and say, yeah, I've been, I own my own investment company, immediately people are going to, subjugate their own opinion to somebody because, they view them as an authority in that particular area. So when they tell them to do something, hey, you need to invest in this or pull your money out of this or put more money into this, you're probably going to do it, and you're not going to spend a whole lot of time researching it because you trust the person in authority. But the crazy thing is, it can be exerted subconsciously. So it's not even something that somebody has to overtly do, but they can actually do it subconsciously. And you can do it in any particular situation. So in sales, for example, it's not so much telling somebody what to do, but if you position yourself and really, or have the ability to gain that authority positioning, one, you're going to have people giving you the power. Two, they're going to trust what you say. Three, you can get them to do things that they would not normally do, because they have that level of trust and that much power that they've given you as that authority figure. So that being said, use it wisely, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in the future. So how can you leverage authority? Practically, what are some things that you can do? Number one, you have to improve your social value. If you're sitting here and you're trying to convince people how great you are in a particular area, that's not going to work. You have to improve your social value. And there's a number of ways to do that. And we'll talk more about that in the future. Number one, you have to improve what I call your inner game. Your inner game basically is the sum of all your what you really believe. So, things that you're confident about, but it's also the things, your fears, your insecurities, and things that you really don't want getting out there. And until you've really come to grips with your inner game and have addressed those areas that are, whether they're insecurities or fears or an inferiority complex or what have you, it's really hard to be an authority because people are going to really pick up on that. One of the practical things you can do is you can become a first mover of social values. And I've seen this a lot in different places. In a group, whenever a group comes together, there's always kind of there's a lack of clarity on kind of what are going to be kind of the unwritten rules about that particular group. And being a first mover on those social values is really, really key. So if it's something where you're in a conversation about somebody, whoever holds the stronger frame on a particular topic is always going to be the person that dictates what those social values are. So really having a strong understanding of what you believe and what you think should be the case, and really communicating that in a strong way, people are going to fall in line. So being that first mover on the social values will immediately cause people to look you as an authority because you actually have the guts to stand there and say what you believe, and you're not backing down. And when you do that, people generally will defer to you and give you that kind of authority badge. One of the things that I like to do in this is I like to champion norms. And what I mean by that is there's certain things that I expect. If you're going to work with me, there's certain things that I'm going to require, and there's certain things that I'm just not going to tolerate. And when I'm the first mover and saying this is what I expect and this is what I do, one, I've improved my social game, or social value, and two, I've really looked and addressed my inner game. But there's certain things that I'm going to expect, and there's certain things I'm not going to tolerate. You're going to be on time for meetings. If you have something that you're going to send to me, it needs to be done. It really doesn't matter what mine are. It matters what yours are. But championing those norms and being that first mover, because people will immediately see you as a leader, and they're going to fall in line. Two, this one's really fun. I loved this one, is identifying the bad apples. Meaning, if you're sitting here with your client or your prospect, and there's kind of in the air of they're not sure whether they can trust you or whether you have their best interests at heart, being kind of that first mover of identifying the bad apples, of saying, okay, well, there's people that do X and Y and Z, and you have that, like, the big elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about. And, there's people that do in our industry or in this area that do X and Y and Z, and that's just completely unacceptable. There's no way in the world you should tolerate that, and I would never act like that. That's really powerful, because immediately that person will start to identify with you that you're seeing the same things that they do and that you're not tolerating that. At that point in time, there's a huge sense of trust that they start to get with you. So let's talk about reciprocity. I mentioned before, this is actually one of my favorite ones. And I call it the law of reciprocity, the theory of reciprocity, but basically people have a subconscious need to establish fairness and justice in a relationship, whether it's a personal relationship, a sales relationship, it could be politics, philosophy, it really doesn't matter. It's a hugely powerful force. There's a term I call social reciprocity, and that means that in response to friendly actions, people are frequently much more cooperative. So, if you're the first person to move and you're going to help somebody with something, they're immediately going to treat you a lot better. On the other hand, absent doing that exact same thing, people are going to look out for number one. So if you're not going out of your way to help somebody first, or going out of your way to do something of value to somebody first, the first thing they're going to look out for is themselves. And you kind of put yourself behind the 8 ball, and you make it a lot harder for yourself that way. So why is this absolutely crucial in your sales? Well, there's a concept that I like to call the reciprocity equilibrium. And basically what this means is that when we receive a gift or something of value ahead of time, we feel a need to give something back of equal or greater value. And in fact, when you do that, it actually makes that need a compulsive need to return the favor. And when you don't do that, there's actually a social stigma involved of being an ingrate. And anybody that's been on Google long enough knows that if you look up celebrity cheap tippers, you'll probably see a small group of people that continually show up because they've violated that innate social contract. So, what are some examples? Okay, I've given you one, tipping. So, if you go to a restaurant and you're going to be a cheap tipper, all the servers there are going to know that, and you're going to have the slowest service and probably not have the best time. But on the other hand, if you are one of these people that consistently tips really well, you're going to have them rushing to serve you because they know that you're going to treat them really, really well. And they're going to basically return the favor and bring that back into equilibrium. But I've also seen what I call comparative tipping, meaning you go out with a group and you split the tab, especially in a business environment. The last thing you want to be known when your boss or somebody else leaves a tip is leaving a cheaper tip, because that absolutely will get you a reputation that you're never going to shake. What's another example? It's funny. A friend of mine taught me this one. It's not accepting a compliment. What do I mean by that? Well, think of the last time somebody said, hey, I really like your shoes, or, you look great, or I like your smile, what have you. The first thing that we always think is we feel the need to absolutely return the compliment. But the crazy thing is, we weren't going to return the compliment, but we feel like, okay, if this person is being this nice to me and they're complimenting me, I kind of have to bring that back into equilibrium and return the favor. And then the last one I call is a social bank account. And what I mean by that is paying it forward. So, when you meet somebody brand new, you can either be the person who's waiting for the first person to act, or you can actually be that first mover. And when you actually pay it forward, you're actually creating a need in the other person's mind to return the favor. So it's up to you kind of how you want to do it, but whatever you do, they are going to return the favor. On the other side of the coin, you can have kind of a social overdraft bank account, meaning that if you've not done something that you're supposed to do, that you actually have to kind of come back and you'll owe actually something back just to get back to even. So how can you leverage this reciprocity equilibrium in your business? Well, it's simple. In fact, it's so simple that a little kid can teach you. How do you get somebody to do something for you? Well, you simply just have to be the first one to push off the ground. And before you know it, the other person is doing the same thing. And if you ask them why, they probably don't necessarily have an answer. So in your business, if you want somebody to immediately feel that compulsive need to pay you back, all you have to do is give them something of value first. And they're immediately trying to think of a way to bring that reciprocity back to equilibrium. All right, so let's talk about anticipation. Anticipation, it's that feeling of excitement that something good's about to happen. So why is using anticipation important? Because everyone looks forward to important events. It also progressively builds excitement. When you know something's going to happen or you're looking forward to it and you're not sure what's going to happen, you are building and building and building enthusiasm toward whatever it is that's coming. And lastly, because people make it a priority. So if you have people that, if you have a wedding or something else, people write it down, they circle it on the calendar, and they will be there. But the question is, in your sales business, are people making it a priority to attend a meeting with you? Well, if not, there's ways that you can get them to do that. So how can you leverage this in your sales? Well, it's easy. You need to tie your products to an event. Some of the best sales and marketers will tie their products to an event, and they create a waiting list of people that look forward to it all year long. It's not something they're buying, it's something they're doing and experiencing. And if you're not taking advantage of that and you're not making your interactions with your customers an experience, then you're really missing out, one, on a lot of sales, but two, you're probably having to drop your price and compete on price when you don't have to. Secondly, you need to start alluding to this event early. The World Cup just ended and Rio is already pushing the Olympics in 2016. If you're expecting people and you do an event and it's 2 days from now, people have made their plans, but you need to really start alluding to this event early and progressively build up that anticipation. When you do that, when people are finally attending that event, they're ready to buy. Their credit card is out and they are waiting for a reason. They just cannot wait to spend their money. Community is a really powerful attraction switch, and when you are part of a group, there is a whole set of unwritten rules that you need to abide by to be accepted and to be part of that group. Some examples of some of those unwritten rules: cell phone conversations, elevators, the office microwave, no fish, parking, and for the guys, elbow room, as I like to call it. So how can you leverage these unwritten rules to your advantage? Well, again, it's pretty simple. You have to establish yourself as the cultural leader. There's a whole set of unwritten rules, but there's a reason they're unwritten. And when you establish yourself as the leader and the one that defines those rules, you get to define them. You get to define the terms that you work on, and people will follow. You need to establish a set of high-value rules. Well, why is that? Well, people aren't looking to set their own set of rules, and they're not looking to take the lead generally. They're looking for cues to follow, and they want to follow people that are high value. So when you go and proactively set a set of high-value rules, you will have, one, you're going to have people follow you, but two, you're going to continually define the circumstances that you work within. And so when you have people that are buying from you, they're going to look up to you as a high-value person, and you can actually set the criteria on which they get to work with you. You also need to proactively look for violations, and I absolutely love this. There's no better way to establish and entrench your set of rules and you being the leader than to proactively look for people that are violating them. Now, does it mean they actually have to be, quote, violating them? Not necessarily, but what you're looking to do is create a stigma. And people will do almost anything to shed a stigma and to repair a social faux pas. And the key to this is that you're putting people on notice that if they don't follow your high value rules, that there's going to be a stigma attached to them. And they absolutely will do anything, like I said, to get rid of that. Scarcity. Now, this is probably one of the most misunderstood attraction switches out there. And there's countless salespeople and sales trainers and sales managers that convince you that you need to create this false sense of scarcity to, get your client to buy. But the problem with that is it's completely manipulative and it's self-serving, and your client knows that. And in today's modern day, if you're trying to inject false scarcity in there, not only do they not believe you, but they usually lose complete respect for you. Now, I have to warn you, most people are going to expect to see bad salespeople try to manipulate them using scarcity just to put a buck in their pocket. Do not do this. But I will tell you, at the same time, you can set the terms on which you get to offer your products or services to people. People are going to naturally expect people of high value to be scarce. And so if you have set a high social value, you can do this and do it in the right way. You can reserve the right to refuse service to anybody. People that are high value in whatever industry, the top lawyers, the top accountants, even the top basketball players, they get to pick and choose who they work with. And they really, they're not trying to sell anybody. They're actually vetting out all their suitors, and they're picking out only the ones that they really, really, really want to work with. And truly, they have a scarcity because they only have so many hours in the day that they can serve that other person. So how can you leverage scarcity and do it in the right way? Number one, you have to be honest. So if you're trying to inject scarcity in your business and you have to shade the truth, lie, then don't do that. You have to be totally honest because people can smell it when you're trying to manipulate them. Secondly, be specific. When you're explaining to somebody why what you're giving to them is scarce, you need to be specific so that they fully understand and they can process and comprehend why it is. That way, at that point in time, that skepticism doesn't come in because you've explained it and they fully understand why what you have is scarce. And then again, I've said this before, but you need to establish a higher value. If you have a higher value, they expect you to be scarce. So when you come in and talk about, what you have to offer as being scarce, it actually lines up with their expectations. All right, let's talk about curiosity. Curiosity is awesome, and this is something that most salespeople just don't do very often. When you can really tap into somebody's sense of curiosity, you can literally drive them and direct what they do on demand. So why is using curiosity important? Well, people will do almost anything to tie off a mental loose end. So whether you see a tease on a TV show and they say wait until next week to find out what happens, or one of your friends asks you a trivia question and you spend the next 35 minutes obsessing over what the answer is, you really get a sense of the lengths that people will go to tie off that mental loose end. So why is using curiosity important in driving your sales? Well, number one, people will do almost anything to tie off a mental loose end, whether it's what happens in their next show, or even when your friend gives you a trivia question and you spend the next 35 minutes obsessing over what the answer is. People will do anything to fill in that blank in their mind. Secondly, it adds excitement to people's lives. How much more exciting and fun is it to unwrap a present than to wrap a present? So how do you leverage curiosity in the real world? Well, first of all, you need to identify your customer's key motivation. And most sales trainers will tell you it's price, or there's some feature or attribute, but we're people. It's never that. It's always something different. People always like working with somebody they like. They'll choose an equivalent product or even sacrifice a little bit if the person they're working with is easier or lines up with their personality better. You also need to confirm that customer's currency. Everybody has their own currency on what makes them move. So once you've identified that motivation, it's going about confirming it so that you really have a firm understanding of how people make decisions and what's important to them. You need to purposefully address a key topic later on your terms. And what I mean by that is once you have your currency, once you know what really gets somebody's attention and what really enthralls them, saving that for later, because what happens is you will basically compel them the entire time you're talking to them. You might be talking about X, Y, and Z, but they're literally just starting to get obsessive about finding out that loose end. And it goes back to what we talked about, anticipation. These all tie in together. And you cannot be afraid to tease the answer. So you're almost saying it, but you're not going to tell them. So that's the broad overview on attraction switches. Now I'm going to be going into a lot further detail on each one of these attraction switches so that you can really be equipped to use these in your business and you really have a firm grasp on how to have these work for you and to make you more money, to give you better clients, and to be honest, just to give you much greater results and not even having to work anywhere near as hard to do so. But you have to connect with me in order to get that information. So you can do a couple things. Number one, you can email me at matt@thenegotiatorsplaybook.com. You can follow me on Twitter. You can friend me on Facebook, which I would definitely love. We're going to be posting some content on there. But the best place to go is to go to my website, which is www.thenegotiatorsplaybook.com. That way you can make sure that you're not missing out on any of these fantastic lessons that will transform your results, all while making it much easier. So go visit my website or connect with me on social media. I appreciate your time, and I'll talk to you soon.